I have automatic lights here, so sometimes they shut off if I don't move.
I noticed that.
Yeah, so you'll see me just wave my hand in the conversation. It's very annoying. Oh, assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Jabir Devji. I'm serving on the board of IFSA this year in the role of the president. And with me, I have our Building Roots manager, Rola Mustafa.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
As I mentioned, I'm on the board, and I think, Rola, you have been with IFSA for how many years now?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. So alhamdulillah, we've had the chance to work together. And now we're hosting this Ask Us Anything session to learn more about the Building Roots lead position. Rola, can you tell me a little bit more about this position?
Sure. So I'll give a little background about how IFSA started working in the refugee resettlement, because this post is connected directly to settling refugees. Back in 2015, IFSA started helping in the refugee resettlement when the huge influx of the Syrian refugees started. So IFSA collaborated with the Central Mennonite Central Committee and the Catholic Archdiocese, and then later it became the Constituent Group, CG. So it started directly sponsoring refugees, filling out applications, submitting applications to the Mennonite and Catholic to submit it to RCC. So from there, IFSA started thinking of becoming a sponsorship agreement holder, which we applied to and got approved by end of 2018. And then we started submitting our own application in 2018. After that, we started working on the developing different process and different applications. So we wanted to have our own system, as RCC leaves this for the SAH to manage. However, the way they want to sponsor refugees, the way they apply their criteria. So we wanted to be very systematic. We developed a rubric, we developed an application online, we set out the criteria, we put everything online, and then every year, by January, we put the application online, and any community members who meet the criteria as a sponsor and they have loved ones who meet the criteria as refugees, they can actually apply and sponsor them. So that's the first phase in the refugee resettlement for IFSA. So applying for sponsorship, filling out the application. Then after that, we have a review committee that review. It's all community members who have certain experience. They review the applications for 2 to 3 months, and then they give their decision. It's like a grading system. We also follow very strict grading system based on the rubric that we designed. Meanwhile, while the review committee is taking their time to review the application, we work on mobilizing community resources like volunteers to help us fill out the application. So we deliver training, we organize them into groups, and then by the time the committee is done with the applications, with reviewing the applications, we start contacting the sponsors who got the highest grades in the system. We contact them, and then we start filling out the applications, managing the volunteers, filling out the applications, submitting them to RCC. And then after, we start a few months after, we start communicating with the visa offices, with RCC. And from there, maybe a year or less or more, we don't know exactly. Each visa office is different. We start welcoming the refugees and then helping them resettle. So that's the process that this position is involved in, from the moment we develop the process, the application, put it online, until we welcome the refugees and help them for 1 year. Throughout the 1 year of resettlement, it will be our responsibility, maybe not directly if it's the private sponsorship, it would be the co-sponsor, but we have like to supervise and make sure that the refugees are receiving the all the resettlement services they are supposed to. But also IFSA is involved in other type of sponsorship, like before blended office visa referral or joint sponsorship with the government. In that case, IFSA is responsible for all the settlements. So we have to train volunteers, or even sometimes we hire part-time staff like to help us with the resettlement of the refugees, from receiving them, welcoming them in the airport, renting space for them, furnishing the space until like they finish the 1 year sponsorship.
So will this lead position, will they be involved in every aspect of that you just mentioned?
Every aspect, but they have to have volunteers with them. So part of this position is volunteer management, for volunteer recruitment first, then volunteer management, then volunteer supervision. So they have to have a team of volunteer with them. Otherwise, it's just hard for one person like to conduct all these activities or all these like tasks.
So just to get an idea, how many spots does IFSA usually have every year through the direct sponsorship, and then I guess through the other methods like blended visa and government?
So for the private sponsorship, RCC give us a quota every year by February, usually. Almost we are getting around like 75 to 80. So it varies. Like first year, it was only 6 spots. Then we had like only 50, 75, 78, something around that.
Okay. So that would be what this position would entail, is you would imagine about 70 to 80 individuals that you would have to,
Exactly.
apply for and help along the way.
Exactly.
So on a day-to-day, I guess, basis, what do you see yourself, or what do you see that person doing?
So as you saw me like explaining the different phases, there is like sometimes different daily work. For example, when we have like the 2 to 3 months of filling out applications, mostly the majority of the daily work would be like communicating with volunteers and filling out applications. If not, sometimes it's like majority of the time is communicating with the review committee if they have anything. And of course, there is always constant like process improvements. Every day we get so many emails. We have different stakeholders and partners, and we also have like different organizations that we are supposed to communicate with in daily basis. Like for example, the SAH Association, RSTB, that's a Refugee Sponsorship Training Program. We always get emails from them. Sometimes we have like to email back, or we have webinars with them. They always conduct training for all sponsors. I would see like during the day there is different activities, but we have a lot of emails to respond back to. Sometimes we have like surveys, we have a lot of phone calls. It's something that that's part of the skills that the lead has to have, which is like managing phone calls, managing the huge volume of emails they have.
Yeah.
So they have to know how to manage their day and prioritize one over the other.
Yeah, so let's jump into that. What kind of skills are we looking for this person to have?
So honestly, I would tap into the emotional skills first, or this position is really demanding, and the person who is leading this position should have extensive amount of like empathy, compassion, patience, ingenuity. It's important for the person who is in this position like to be strong and know how like to deal and hear even like hard stories, and how to respond with a lot of empathy, to empathize with the refugees and their families, and even with community members who have family and friends. They want to sponsor them, but for certain reason they are not eligible. So that's like one of the set of skills they are required to. Another set of skills, which is within the management skills, is managing volunteers, as we said, leadership skills to know how to deal with a big number of volunteers. Also, within this work, there are many trackers that we keep. So there is a lot of details that's involved in each tracker, and there is a lot of details even in the emails, in the RCC rules, the SAH communication tips. So there are a lot of details. I would say that details attention is very important. If we make any mistake with any application, it may cost 2 to 3 months to fix that mistake. So we have to be very careful, very attentive to all the details. So that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Does the person need to have a background in settlement?
I would say it's a big asset, because now we would expect that we'll start welcoming many refugees. So the refugees we sponsored back in 2019, some of them were called for interviews, but due to COVID-19, unfortunately, the interviews were put on hold. So back in maybe I would say June, July, the visa office started calling for interviews. We also got after that a few quarantine requests for quarantine plan, and we have one family arriving soon. That's from the 2019 batch, or the application we submitted in 2019. So a big role for the lead is to supervise the privately sponsored refugees sponsors. So they have to make sure that the sponsors are doing all the required settlement services. Every little details has to be done for the refugees. So I would say having a general experience in refugee resettlement is very important.
That's good to know. Is it a requirement that the person that takes this position have any language, any specific language that they know, maybe Arabic or Farsi? Or
I would also say that this is an asset. Majority of the co-sponsors who apply to IFSA are from either Syrian, Iraqi, Somali, Sudanese background, mostly speaking Arabic and Somali. And then we also have Afghani background. And I would expect this year also, like what happened in 2015, there will be a huge influx. We were expecting even that to happen starting this month, huge influx of Afghani refugees. So probably will either if the person who applies may have this language, or would require to recruit volunteers who speaks Farsi. So it's not necessarily that the person has to be Arabic or Somali or Afghani speaking, but it's an asset. One of those languages I would say is an asset.
Good to know. So what's the team like? Who would you be working with?
Yeah. So I would say the person would maybe be working only with volunteers unless it's much needed to, for example, in 2019, when we sponsored 10 families from the blended office visa referral, we wouldn't expect that they will be sending them in less than a month, and many of them. So we weren't given enough notice from RCC for the arrival of the refugees. And then I had to tap into the staff resources and ask for help. So I got two staff who helped me to resettle the PQR families. Also, probably they would be working alone, but they have to recruit a big number of volunteers. And I see always we get requests, how can I help? What can we do to support the refugees arriving into our communities? So they will be working with a big number of volunteers, but also there is always communication with the IFSA team, all of the IFSA team. For example, on the helpline, there is always calls on like asking questions regarding sponsorship. So the helpline staff who are on that day would always talk to me and probably just refer the person to me or ask me the question. We also like spend sometimes training the helpline staff on how to answer refugee-related questions. The essential care team who meet the clients on daily basis, they always get many questions and inquiries which require constant communication between the lead and the essential care team. So there is this type of like communication going on all the time between the lead and the IFSA staff.
Okay, right on. So yeah, you're from what I understand, you're largely independent and you're leading the process on your own, and you have a team of volunteers that you've recruited and you manage. And at the same time, you work with the rest of the staff at IFSA. And
exactly.
if the need is high, then you have the ability to draw a little bit from IFSA staff. But for the most part, you're quite independent with you and your team of volunteers.
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. So can you tell me what is, in your opinion, the most difficult thing about this work? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's the emotional part of the communication with clients and hearing their stories. So community members who came from like refugee camps, they left many family members behind in the refugee camps, and they always try to of course, like anyone else, they would try to bring a reunion with their family members. So they would tell you their stories and how hard the life in refugee camps. Sometimes I would get like WhatsApp calls from refugees themselves living in refugee camps, or even living in a very bad situation. They send me pictures. They call me, they tell me the stories. Sometimes that renders me even sleepless, because we can't help everyone. We are also limited on like the quota we get, the resources we have. So and sometimes it's not even within our competencies to do that. When like the person, for example, is still in their home, they are not considered refugees. We can't like sponsor them. But then their families they call and they tell you hard stories. You get so emotional and you feel so limited because you can't always help them.
Yeah, of course, I can imagine that's very difficult, especially because your heart goes out to them and you want to do something, but it's just not possible.
Right, yeah. We wish we could help like everyone, but it's just beyond our capacity.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, why should someone apply for this work?
So for me, this job, I feel it's very rewarding. Despite all the hardship and hard feeling we get, but it's very rewarding. When you see the refugees arriving, you would forget like all the time that maybe communicating with visa offices, struggling with IRCC, but it just like seeing them in the airport very happy, especially if they have kids. It just then I feel like that I have helped someone doing something great. So the lead person who would be in this position, welcoming the refugees in the airport, I think that would be one of the memorable time for them to remember always. Just imagine those kids or the entire family coming from refugee camps where they don't have, or even from countries of refuge where they are almost like deported in a very short time, or they don't, when their future is not certain. They don't know if maybe they have job for today but not tomorrow. They don't know where they would be in a month or two, and suddenly in like with your help they would come to a safe country. They would know that they will be safe, they will prosper. And 1 year after, when they are resettled, the kids learned English, they went to school, you see them swimming, you see them like running in the street, playing with kids. That's like the most beautiful part of our work and the work that the lead would do.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. You know, I don't think that there are many positions that are like this that, you know, require you to, um, you know, be so involved with people, and at the same time in official process like applications and communicating with the government in many different ways. It seems like a really exciting mix of things that you do. So alhamdulillah, it seems like a very, very exciting position. I
It
just
is.
want to remind everyone that you can find more details about the position at islamicfamily.ca/careers. We also invite you to ask some questions on this live stream, and we'll do our best to get to them. But as I mentioned, the details again are at islamicfamily.ca/careers. So tell me, Rola, can you tell me a little bit more about IFSA in general and how this position fits into the larger picture of what IFSA does?
Yeah. So if you probably if you know, IFSA has been around for like many years, helping and serving the communities in a very efficient way. So we have like different departments within IFSA, and probably if you know, maybe I'll just like say, I know that you know, but I'm just saying this for the general public. For whoever is watching us, IFSA is the second food depot in Edmonton, and it's like one of the very few organization that looks holistically on the individual and on serving them. So we have essential care department that look after like the food bank, look after the very basic maybe daily needs of the individuals. And then we also have the outreach team that support and help the any community member who is in need. They mostly like support women in need who need some like outreach support. We have also psychological support. So it's like in a way it's we are serving the individual holistically from a very various ways. I would say this position help or fit within IFSA values and IFSA vision, that we are also like helping the most in need, the community members who are maybe dearly missing their loved ones and they want them to come here, and the refugees who are living in their situation, in very disparate situation. We provide them with a new life to sit and settle here in a peaceful country.
That's great. That gives us a really good idea of how this role fits into the larger, I guess, activities and services of IFSA. As you're talking about it, I can imagine how the person who fills this role taps on the different teams and the other members of IFSA for their help, whether it be for counseling services for some of the clients or with the essential needs as well. So we have some questions from the chat here, so I'll just read a few of them. Rola, would we be working directly with you in this role?
Not actually. This role will be replacing my role. So I used to do very different or manage a few programs. This is one of the programs, or the biggest program that I used to manage. So, and now it's expanding as well. So this will be like a separate program that will be refugee resettlement mainly, and it's reporting to the EO, Executive Officer of IFSA, not to me.
The next question we have, well, you answered it, the reporting structure. So directly reporting to the EO, and I guess you are a team of yourself, right?
Yeah, and the volunteers.
and the volunteers. So a couple questions in regards to just the application process for this position. It says in lieu of a cover letter, we ask that you send us a video that's 5 minutes or less. So just a technical question. Do you mean that we should send this video? Is that a must? Do we need to send this video, or do we have the choice to send it or not send it?
I think it is a must. It's just like we feel probably that it's like it's another way to convey to us the skills that you have, and just show us. It's not about how fancy the video, or just don't worry about that at all. Just like they show us how you will manage this position if you would be in it soon.
I think, yeah, it does a lot to, see a video, especially you get to see how the person speaks, their demeanor, and, and really they get to convey their ideas a lot better, I think, through this medium. So I think it's a great process. Can you remind us a little bit, when's the application deadline?
September 30th.
Okay, great. And what's the process of application? How do they send their application in?
I think there is an email address where they can send the application to.
Okay, fantastic. So we can find more details on islamicfamily.ca/careers, and
Exactly.
if you go there, you will find a full instruction on the details of how to apply for the position. So what does the onboarding process look like for the person who's successful?
Okay. So onboarding, we also have like automated many processes within IFSA. One of them is the onboarding. That's one part, and then the other part that's mainly part of the responsibilities that the lead would do. I would be available like for maybe a month and a half, like to train, support, and monitor the person until like they are very confident to lead the position by themselves. Also, onboarding, usually we do help the new hire to get to know IFSA well, meet with the with all the departments, different staff, and just to get to learn more about what IFSA does in general.
Okay, great. I don't know, Rola, is there anything that maybe we might have left out that you want to add about this position?
I maybe just forgot about mentioning that now we're also automating the monitoring of the resettlement tasks. So RCC started a quality assurance program, I would say more than 2 years ago, which they required actually that we keep documentation of all the documents the refugees get within the first year. And we also like document the process that they went through. RCC wants to make sure that the refugees are getting all the financial and non-financial help. So we have to make sure that each document or each refugee file has a document with all this information ready in case RCC wants to kind of like review our work. So RCC usually is saying that we have to, or they will review each SA once in a year for one application, at least randomly chosen. That's like a big task. It's not easy. You have to make sure that everything is documented, nothing is missing, everything is ready by the time RCC asks for information, you are there like to give them. So we are working on automating this, so to make it a little bit easier, as we are expecting many privately sponsored refugees to arrive. So this is one of the tasks that the lead would work on when they land in the position first, and they have to pay a big attention to it as well.
So it seems like you've done a lot to automate and make certain elements of the process easier, but there's still far more to do, right?
Still, yeah, and this is one of the things with RCC. They have been actually also updating and changing the program, and then they actually convey the information to the SAH Association. SAH Association give us the updates, and then we usually don't agree always we give back our like views or our objection to the association. They advocate and go back to RCC. So there is back and forth usually until like one rule got established. So you have to always make sure that this information is documented and we know exactly on which stage we are now.
Mm-hmm. Great. We have one more question about the, I guess, application process. So one of the questions that the applicants are asked to address in their 5-minute video is to discuss the practical steps that IFSA could take to support potential sponsors during a crisis. So the person asking the question is, do you mean the potential refugees? So discuss practical steps IFSA could take to support potential refugees during a crisis, or is it steps to support potential sponsors?
I think it's potential refugees, but it includes also potential sponsors, because for privately sponsored refugees, don't forget that the sponsor has to do everything, but we have to extend like our support through giving them the information, guiding them, and also like monitoring the work that they are doing. So it's important that we are available for both, for the refugees and for the sponsor too.
Mm-hmm. So from what I understand, you are working with the sponsors directly, and they are essentially your main point of contact rather than the refugee themselves.
Yeah, because maybe the refugee won't exactly understand what we mean when we probably tell them to provide like one service, which is a little bit like it would be out of context for the refugees, but the sponsor would know, but also would pay the refugees visits from time to time to see like also if they have any issues, see how their relation with their sponsor is going. It's mostly like family relations, so it won't be like too complicated or won't have like a lot of issues arising, but we have to be always available in case any issue arises, so we have to be there and know how to handle it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you, I guess I'm kind of digging into this question a little bit more. So this, I guess we're asking them to provide practical steps that IFSA could take to help the potential sponsors during a crisis period. So from what I'm understanding is, you know, sponsors come to IFSA wanting to sponsor maybe their family or their friends. And what can we do to help them, I guess, complete their application, or steps that we could maybe do that are different to, yeah, I guess, complete their application or make it that much more compelling.
Yeah. So for example, when we are helping the sponsors to fill out the applications, it's one way that we are also like helping the refugees for their resettlement journey. So it's if you are saying like the sponsors, then probably we need to also work with them. Sometimes there are sponsors that we are helping, but they are not like co-sponsors with IFSA. There are a group of 5 that they require support. For example, there are details that they don't know, they seek our advice on, or sometimes even with the refugee application. So our volunteers should be ready as well to help a group of 5 if they need help.
Okay. Sorry, Rola, just give me one moment.
Okay.
I am reading one of the questions in the chat. Okay. I think we've covered everything in that question. So I guess, Rola, anything to add about this position?
I think I also have covered it all, but as I said, it's very rewarding and fulfilling position. There are a lot to learn. There is constantly webinars, training provided by the SAHA Association or RSTP. Sometimes RCC also come to visit us and answer any question we have. This is like two ways learning. So there is a lot of learning involved, and I really wish the best for the person who would lead this position.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Rola, for your time today to talk about this position. It's certainly an exciting one. Thank you to everyone who is listening and watching. Please feel free to send your applications in as per the instructions on the website, islamicfamily.ca/careers. There's also an email address there that you can send any specific questions to. And I guess that's it for now. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, everybody. And
thank you, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.